what I'd like to do is share with you that Wrap Park Insights are reflective of what I'm going to call a paradigm shift in our approach to recovery. So, some people have to go, and that's okay. So if you can stick with us, here's the paradigm shift. We've been following historically an acute care model. What does that mean? Well, treatment was the primary focus. Someone would go to treatment, 30 days. I went to 2 weeks of outpatient treatment. And then I was released out into my community to live my life and go to work if I had a job and have housing. And this model worked for many people. Often we were hooked up with 12-step groups. That's traditionally been kind of how it is. You treatment, 12-step groups, you get back into the community. And for many of us, that was a beautiful system and it worked. However, what we're finding works even better, and we're always shooting for what works better, is the chronic care model, where treatment is just one of many resources needed for sustained recovery. And many of you wrote about this when you were giving me your comments. So peer support, housing, family, belonging to something bigger than yourself, those social supports, and finding purpose. How about that? So this is what we're shifting to, and we're shifting to it embedded in something called a ROSC. I don't know by show of hands how many of you have heard of a ROSC. What is that? Well, it's just a recovery-oriented system of care. A recovery-oriented system of care. So let's find out how that's defined officially. It's a coordinated network of community-based services. So I know we have that in Orange County with the Recovery Collaborative. That's people coming together to share resources. It's got the county, nonprofit, it's got the sheriff, and it supports recovery that's person-centered, it's strength-based, it deals with the resiliency of not just the individual, but families and communities to achieve abstinence, but more importantly, to achieve health and wellness and quality of life for those with substance use disorder. That's what a recovery-oriented system of care is. I believe that's what many of our communities are building and strengthening now, even as we speak. I have a graphic on page 18 of your workbook that kind of explains more than all my words. Look at all the things that could go in to a recovery-oriented system of care, many of which are already in place here in Orange County or wherever you are in your community. I want to share with you a very 1-minute story. My husband, who I adore, was my former drug dealer, by the way, and we lost each other for a long time. He went to prison over his addiction. But he experienced the benefits of a recovery-oriented system of care when he was released in 2003. What did that look like? Well, he was connected to housing. That's huge when you get out of prison, let's say, and he has a felony. So he was connected to treatment. He was connected to peer recovery support, the faith community. He got help with his child support, which was looming over him like a huge lead weight. He got help with DMV, getting his driver's license back. He got income until he could get a job from General Relief, which is county welfare. He joined Job Club. They taught him how to interview. He was a great drug dealer, but he needed to learn how to function in normal society. He got connected with employers who were willing to hire a felon who had an addiction and who was in recovery. Wow. You know what? He never looked back. He never looked back. And today his children are out of foster care. We have a beautiful marriage. Those are the miracles of a ROSC. And so I would like you to, those of you who are left, I still have 35 of you, yay. So what I would like to do is break you up into small groups. Hopefully no one will have just one in their group. And we're gonna look at the strengths of the ROSC, the recovery-oriented system of care that's in your community. We're gonna look at maybe what's 1 or 2 gaps that we could turn into opportunities to improve that ROSC, and then 1 step that you are willing to take, or maybe your agency, to strengthen the recovery-oriented system of care in your community. Let's break out into those groups, Danella, and then reporter, get ready to share. because this is how we can expect more recovery. For those of you that just met, if you were able to work through this little exercise, if there is maybe a gap that you see, maybe put that in the chat, and then a step that could be taken to strengthen the ROSC in our community. Also, if you want to post strengths. So if you could start posting, and then if somebody has their hand up, and again, we will wrap this up. As soon as this exercise is done, we're going to wrap up. I'm so thankful that you stayed with me. Anyone want to comment? Hand up. And then remember to post in the chat. Gaps, fragmentation in the system, so many programs, hard to navigate. And then earlier somebody said the issue of transportation, so spread out, and then connecting people with care, and there isn't treatment on demand. And that's something we want to shoot for. Anyone else? Lack of access to care for those without private insurance. Isn't that the truth? Guess what we discussed in the communication between all the system and working for the main goal. Lack of housing, lack of sober living, telling people to use before getting into a detox bed. I've heard of this. This is not okay. More support, more education, more family support, earlier access to services.
I see that Maura had her hand up. Maura, do you want to unmute yourself? You can speak.
Oh, I was just going to say housing, and then someone already said it.
Okay.
Yeah. Like the, what happened with your husband. You know, if someone tries to get sober and has nowhere to go and goes back to the street, I mean, I haven't seen anybody maintain sobriety in those conditions.
Yeah. And I'm going to tell you, my husband would have gone back and sold drugs if there had not been an opportunity, because that's what he had known for 20 years. So giving him that lifeline was huge. And I'm telling you, he is a tax-paying citizen now. And just the difference is just night and day in myself and in him and in our children. You know, they're viable citizens now. It's just the miracle is leaves me speechless.
You know, Tracy, the one thing I want to say is that when we began the Faces and Voices of Recovery, the one thing we learned almost from the get-go is how important and how much power a story has. Just like the one you told.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I know everyone here has a story, by the way. All of you have stories, and I hope we have more forums to share those stories, because there's power in our stories. Okay, I feel like that if we can pick people up off the streets and begin their recovery process from there, instead of taking them to jail. Yeah, what a concept. Need doctors to support our AT homeless shelters. You know, getting doctors more on board with the science of addiction and recovery is really helpful, because there's a stigma there with the medical community that is slowly beginning to dissolve. So in the interest of time, clearly you can see that there is more work to be done, but with all we know about what helps people recover, and with us gathering to share ideas, I believe that our recovery-oriented system of care can only get stronger. And when it does, recovery will be more holistic, and we can then expect recovery in the people that we're serving. And right now, based on a very recent study, 20.5 million strong of people in recovery and growing. And I do have 2 more poll questions. I don't know if we have time, Janella. I'm holding these people hostage. Terrible.
Poll question. Let's see what happens with this poll question.
Okay, let's see.
All right. With sustained abstinence, engagement, connections, and peer support, the addicted brain can heal, and over time, we should expect recovery. Is that a true or false statement?
I can't see the poll.
Oh, well, I guess you can't, because I haven't launched it. But I've now read it for all of you. So is that a true or false statement?
Well, let me think about that.
Are you going to think about that? Let's see. Flip a coin, Merlin. Heads or tails?
Too late, I voted.
Okay.
Okay, well, that's our key takeaway. How do we do on that one?
Well, hold on a minute here. Technology, I'm going to end this poll and share the results, and you're
Look
all
at that.
winners.
100%. So thank you. I want you to all imagine for a minute the transformation we would see in this world if everyone who needed it was in lifelong, sustained recovery. Imagine that world. And today there are over 20.5 million of us in long-term recovery. We are living productive, fulfilling lives. And the more we speak out, the more we share information, the more we gather and share stories, we spread hope and healing. And I thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you'll come back to the purpose of recovery and join us for more events. Donella, you did speak to this earlier. So we do have 2 more events coming up, and you already talked about that. So I hope you'll join us. I also hope you'll give us some feedback. Think about, we don't have time to share it all, but think about a takeaway you're going to apply right away from today, and then evaluate this presentation if you would. It's only 3 questions, guys. It takes you like that. And you can hold your camera up to that little, whatever you call that QR code, or Donella will be sending you a link and you could quickly complete that and give us some feedback. But I want to thank you so very much for joining me today. It's been just a joy to have you all with us today. Thank you.
Yes, and I am going to respond to a few of the things in the chat. We will have the recording available. Tracy, can you do trainings in school? You can respond to Christina on that. And for feedback today, if you don't have access to Google, I'll put the questions in an email and you'll all receive an email as well that you can respond to. So thank you all for being here. This was just really encouraging to us to be able to interact with the community, and just hope that we'll be able to see you all again in the future.